You are listening to the Adapt Performance Podcast, where we aim to make elite level strength and conditioning accessible to everybody. I'm your host, Jordan Webster, and let's get into the episode. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Adapt Performance Podcast. So if you're an athlete and you are wanting to make as little progress as possible, here are 3 of the ways that I would recommend that you do that in order to waste your time in the gym. Obviously, you probably don't want that, but this should hopefully give you some ideas of things that you want to try and avoid in order to maximize your progress as much as possible. So first and foremost, what we've got is excessive variety. And by this, I typically mean that you are doing random stuff pretty much all the time. You know, this can definitely move out to lifestyle things and habits in terms of workout splits and nutrition, sleep routine, all those things for sure. But for the purpose of today, I'm going to speak more about exercises. And people use excessive variety quite a lot. And I think the main culprit is sets, reps, and exercise selection. And it's one of those things where if you are trying to make the most progress possible, what we want to try and do is be very structured and measured and make sure that we are doing things for a reason. That's the thing. Like, we want to make sure if you're gonna, go to the gym, take time out of your day to really invest in yourself with this 1 hour, 2 hours, you want to make sure that you're getting the most return from it. So going in and doing a bit of this and a bit of that is just shortchanging you. You're going to make not as much progress as you could. And in some scenarios, you might even be doing yourself harm by just winging it, right? And I say this all the time, and I'm definitely a broken record when it comes to this type of stuff, but ultimately it's the stuff that matters. Like, I don't just say it for fun. I'm not trying to go viral with something that is a pretty boring topic. I am saying it because I genuinely believe it as an S&C coach that's been working with athletes for the past 12 years, right? I just think this is a vital thing if you really want to start seeing some big progress. So with variety then, some of the reasons that I'm generally against using too much variety is, for the most part, people get rewarded in the short term when they change the program in a few ways. The first one is let's say you start doing a new exercise. For the first 4, 5, 6 weeks, you're going to improve pretty quickly. You're going to be able to put weight on the bar, add some reps, that type of thing. It's really exciting. It's cool. But the thing is, what you're probably doing there is making more coordination changes. You're making coordination gains, which is nervous system related. Your body's just learning how to do that movement better, which isn't a bad thing by any means. Particularly if that exercise is really important to you from a sporting standpoint. But there's not many exercises that are actually vital to you from a sporting standpoint, unless you are a powerlifter, strongman, that type of thing. So actually what you end up getting is a lot of coordination changes as you're getting stronger, but you're not actually making huge amounts of actual structural changes to the muscles and the tendons and motor unit recruitment, like the brain's way of just activating all that muscle fiber as much as possible. So actually, for those first 4, 5, 6 weeks, mostly coordination changes. And that is typically when you hit that little bit of a plateau, when the coordination changes start to drop off and you're not really making progress every time. That is when a lot of people will go, I'm not making gains. I'm bored of this exercise. I'm going to move on to something different, which is, you can see now why that would be a bad idea, because you've just rode the coordination changes, not really made much change to the muscle. You go to a new exercise, you rinse, repeat, you start that whole process again. So you could definitely see why so many people that go to the gym and have been going to the gym for years, but just wing it, don't make that much progress, don't really change, don't really grow. You don't really see the realities of their work on them, which is, it's a shame, but that is one of the things we want to try and make sure that we do, is actually see things through a little bit more consistently if we are trying to make change. And I'm not saying that you want to avoid variety. I enjoy adding the odd new exercise in and fucking around with some stuff. I'm all about that. I love training, so doing that stuff is really fun. But you can also have structured variety. I know that sounds pretty wild, but every program should have an idea of what we are trying to accomplish. You should have a goal, okay? From that goal, you want to go through a little bit of a process of figuring out, well, okay, what are the most important parts of training in order to achieve that goal, okay? So you should have almost your go-to exercises, your non-negotiables, the ones that are really going to be key important elements to get you to your end result, okay? And After that point, so once you've got your big rocks, your foundations, I then think having a little bit of fun with your accessories or your core work is fine. Again, I wouldn't go too random or whimsical with it, because I think then you really start to, like, you're just working for the sake of working. You might get some gains and some results, but I just don't think it's going to be the most optimal way of going about it. Okay. So excessive variety is, from a result standpoint, I think you are going to be missing out, but you can do a bit of it if it is really important to you in terms of keeping you engaged as a trainee, as somebody that goes to the gym. Okay. If that's an important part because you get bored and all those things, fine. Like, we can just accept that for what it is. If you are an athlete, right, and you play a sport on top of the gym, I think you need to be a little bit more careful, because when you add new exercises in, okay, or even new sets, new reps, that type of thing, it all gets bucketed together in terms of variety. It is a novel stimulus for the body, in which case it's not always super used to how it wants to behave. We don't know how it's going to feel. And what usually happens is, if you change exercises and you go decently heavy on it straight away, is you get really sore. Okay, you get really sore, and there is an increased fatigue element to that, which is obviously not a good thing. If you then need to go and practice your sport, whether that is running, jumping, a combat sport, whatever, we want to try and limit soreness, to be honest with you. Like, soreness is not a good thing. And I'm going to go into this later on. Like, it's not something that's favorable to us. In fact, we want to avoid it. So just rotating through exercises for the sake of it, yeah, you might be a little bit more fun, but you're gonna not make as much progress, and you're gonna get more sore, which is gonna potentially decrease your effectiveness in your sport, but also maybe increase the chance of injury. Like, there's not many upsides to it, in my opinion, other than you just want a little bit of fun. Again, that's fine. I think use your accessories if you want to, but still don't go wild. And I would try and limit that, to be honest. But that is one of those things where you need to make sure it just aligns with you. I would write things down. Just get your program written down. And people always say to me, "Oh, I remember my weights. I remember my sessions." And I'm like, I just don't think you do to the same degree. Like, the human memory is not that good. There's a good saying that I absolutely love for this type of thing. The faintest pencil is better than the best human memory. And I stand by that, right? Write down your sets, write down your weights, write down your exercises, the order that you do things. Magical things happen when you put pen to paper or you type it out on a Word document, because it's no longer just this floating thought in your brain where you're kind of subconsciously, in some scenarios, like making decisions, and you might be skipping from A to Z without actually making logic. When you're forced to write things down on a piece of paper, you've got to like you've got to verbalize it properly, and then you can start to see how things make sense. Like, I know some amazing S&C coaches, and even them, we're all about writing things down first. Like, you can definitely make decisions off the cuff because you've done it so often, but if you're just an athlete that hasn't been training or programming for themselves for a while, write it down. So there's phase one. Okay, if you wanted to basically waste your time and not make as much progress, excessive variety is going to be a big one for you. Number two then is finishers. Okay, if you don't know what a finisher is, essentially it is you get to the end of the session and the idea is that I'm going to do a horrible circuit or something that is going to be hard to finish the session off. And look, I'll hold my hand up and say this, like, before I really got into strength and conditioning, I was a personal trainer. Like many coaches kind of go through that journey. If they want to end up to S&C, they start off working with more general population clients. And for that scenario where you're trying to build somebody's buy-in into training and just get them enjoying stuff, and a lot of them do want to leave the session feeling like, oh, I've worked hard there. Finishes something that will get used. And it might be that you do just a random circuit of 4 exercises and just send it. It might be that you give them some horrible intervals on the assault bike. It might be a rowing machine, it might be a burpee, drop set, right? Whatever. But my problem with this is, again, going back to my previous point, if you're not writing things down and you haven't really like took the time to understand what your goal is, what's going to get you to your goal, what are the key elements that underpin that, like what are the repeatable actions that get you to that point, you just throwing in a random finisher at the end of a session, it's not that. Like, if it was important, it wouldn't be a finisher. It's just something we are doing at the end, which is our conditioning that we are repeatedly doing for the sake of like adaptation. Okay. If you haven't kind of guessed by now, I'm very much trying to like unpick what our goals are and actually get you there as fast as possible. It's not random shit. Okay. So yeah, finishers, I just see them as, for the most part, it's pointless. It's used to fill time. And I've definitely been there again, like holding my hands up when I was personal trainer. If you misjudge the session time a little bit, you get through it a little bit quicker and you're like, they've paid me for an extra 15 minutes. Cool. We're going to do a finisher. I'm going to get you on battle ropes and I'm going to get you on an assault bike and we're going to do some burpees with it. You're just filling time, because you don't want them to think, no, I've paid for 60 minutes and, we're done at 45. And it's not good. Like, it's not good practice, really, in my opinion, but it does happen. Usually that shouldn't happen all the time. That should just be a one-off where, oh, you know what, I've got to make a quick decision here. And again, going back to my point, general population probably doesn't matter that much. It's just important that they move and they're going through training and you're building their relationship with their bodies and moving well. That's the thing. If you're an athlete, let's maximize this. It shouldn't be a finisher. It should just be a part of your conditioning that you have got it scheduled in. You know the implications of it. You know the drawbacks, the pros, the cons. It makes sense. Okay, it's underpinned by logic, right? So yeah, there's the second one. These finishes, I just, for the most part, just think that they are pointless. They're just creating fatigue. Okay, I'm just not a huge fan, to be honest. And then the final one is what it's all been leading to is chasing fatigue as an outcome. Okay, like going down a training route to make yourself tired is absolutely wild to me. It's the fatigue is the bad part of training. The fatigue is the thing we don't want. Like, we want the adaptation, we want the results, we don't want the fatigue. So it's like chasing fatigue is like going to the bank and saying, "Hey mate, can I have some debt?" And they're like, "Oh, do you want some money first?" You're like, no, I don't want the money. I just want all the debt. It's like, that's what you're doing when you chase fatigue. There's no reason. It doesn't impact you in a positive way. And look, you will get fatigue as part of good training, right? When you're pushing yourself, there is going to be some that accumulates. That is a part of it. But we don't want to be going after that as the outcome. That makes no sense. Okay. So with this, look, like the things that are going to bring about fatigue is going to be training to failure repeatedly, probably too often. Okay. High rep sets are also going to bring about fatigue, probably in a slightly different way, but it is going to be fatigue dominated. Super high volume programs are also going to have a lot of fatigue. If your weekly schedule is mapped out pretty poorly, in a sense of, I've spoke about this before, but if you used to map out your training week as it currently stands and give it an intensity measure, just nice and loosely, if you gave it a red, really hard session, amber or orange as a medium intensity session, and then green as either a rest day or a low intensity session, map out your entire week. And what we want to see is generally like a balance of colors. And ideally, it should not be red, 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 green, 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 green. We want to see that there is red, green, amber, green, red, amber, green. Like, there wants to be some element of balance, because those red sessions typically are the most demanding, the most fatiguing. As a result, they need time for your body and your brain in order to recover, in order for there to be positive adaptations. And then you're not just digging yourself into a hole. The problem with just chasing fatigue is ultimately what that's going to do is going to decrease your output. It's going to decrease how high you can jump, how fast you will be in training, how quickly you're going to be able to make coordination and skill changes. And that is something that people like undervalue. Like, fatigue is not just about, oh, my muscles feel sore. Like, when you are fatigued, it changes the way that your body moves and coordinates your body. They've done studies on this, like where somebody is fatigued versus non-fatigued, you will see that the joint angles that they display and the coordination from one joint angle to the next gets sloppier, okay, as you move through. Like, and that is purely down to fatigue. So if you're really trying to hone your skills pay the bills. That's something that will get said in combat sports all the time. Like, I'm a skill chaser, I'm going after that. Cool. Well, actually, if you genuinely believe that, then what we need to make sure is you are maximizing the freshness element of it. Okay. And we're not just living in fatigue, because that is going to be slowing down your progress long term. I know that's tricky when you probably want to get loads of reps in. That is also a thing. You need to be a driller. You need to have elements of reps under you. But fatigue is not amazing. Okay. And you genuinely will see that people start to pick up more injuries when they are massively fatigued. They will definitely plateau. Like, people fall off a cliff when they're in a fatigue hole. One of the things that's worth kind of thinking about is there is elements of a training program that is gradually going to bring about more fatigue as the training program goes on. Okay. So if you're 8 weeks into a training block that you have purposely programmed to be really difficult, there is going to be a buildup of fatigue that you might then take a deload and then repeat. Okay. That is what you might call functional overreaching is the term. The idea is that you are trying to create a training program that gradually builds up the training intensity and the stimulus so that you can adapt from it. But as a byproduct, there is going to be fatigue that comes along with it. So that is it is a planned overreaching phase. Okay. So overreaching is just to kind of go back to this. Overreaching and overtraining are often kind of put in the same bucket, but they're slightly different. In the literature, overtraining is usually like more overtraining syndrome. So if you go back to one of my episodes with Lee Bell, his research is in overtraining and deloads and those types of things. Overtraining usually refers to overtraining syndrome, which is actually where just having a week off or a couple of days off is not returning you back to baseline. You are seriously like really struggling fatigue-wise, like you've properly messed yourself up. And that is not something that, typically most people get. To be honest, if you are suffering from overtraining syndrome, I actually think most of the time that is more of a mental health thing that we need to try and solve in order to solve the root cause, because you've pushed so hard to a point where you are really, really like ignoring signs. There will be a million signs that you are going into overtraining syndrome before you get there. Extreme fatigue, mood is down, hormonal issues, sex drive, appetite, losing weight, illness, there's going to be loads. But if you're there, it's probably like there's something going on, in my opinion. But most of us, when we say, I'm feeling a bit overtrained at the moment, usually what it is like, we're not quite at overtraining syndrome standpoint. We're more just overreaching. We're like, you know what, I'm reaching slightly above what I can actually recover from a capacity standpoint. That is like overreaching. But you can program that specifically if that is like your lens of performance, and that's how you think you're going to bring about the most adaptations. So fatigue is one of those things that will build up. Okay. It's not necessarily something that you want, but you can get rid of it as well. So managing yourself in terms of recovery days, deloads, making sure your programming is appropriate is going to be vital. Like that's something you're really going to have to lock in, is make sure that when you're writing something down, it makes sense. Okay. There's the thing. So look, just to kind of recap there then, 3 of the things that I think you should do if you really want to waste your time in the gym and really delay progress. Use excessive variety, include finishes in your training program, and then maximize for fatigue. Those are the 3 that I would be doing that I obviously don't want you to do. Okay, guys, so if you enjoyed this episode, please do let me know. Give it a share on social media. Let your friends, family, let your nan know about it. She needs to understand this fatigue mechanism standpoint. But yeah, other than that, if you've got any more questions for me, please do stick them over to me either on WhatsApp. I keep saying WhatsApp. If you've got my WhatsApp, send them on WhatsApp, or Instagram is probably where you're going to get the best replies. All right, speak soon, guys. Okay, that is the end of today's episode, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please do let us know and then share it with somebody who may find this episode interesting. Okay, see you next time. Cheers.